Rainforests are absolutely awe-inspiring habitats, and they've inspired me for around a decade now. When I was 19, I went on an absolute adventure of a lifetime to the rainforests of Guyana in South America. I remember just being absolutely captivated by just how beautiful, but also how complex these ecosystems are. And because of that complexity, we know remarkably little about how they're organised. But one of the things that was striking for me when I first went into these rainforests is just actually how dark it can get. When you're right under the forest canopy, it's sometimes difficult to read your own field notes. It's amazing. But then you can walk just a few meters and then suddenly you could be in a forest clearing that's full of light. Now, a lot of the animals that live in these rainforests obviously use vision like us as one of their main senses. But we know very little about how this light variation is perceived by those animals. To study that, we decided to focus our attention on one of the Amazon rainforest's most diverse inhabitants, the butterflies. In particular, we studied butterflies from the tribe ithomiine. They're also called clear-wing butterflies because many species exhibit these really amazing transparent wings. A few years ago, me and my research assistant Theodora went to Yasuni National Park in Ecuador, possibly the most biodiverse region of the planet, and an absolutely spectacular place for all kinds of wildlife. Now, in that community there are around 60 species of ithomiines, which is more than there are butterfly species in the UK as a whole, actually. And one really interesting component about their biology is their mimicry. So this is a species called Hypothyrus anastasia. All ithomiines are toxic, so all the species are trying to advertise to their predators to stay away and not to try and eat them. And they get those toxins from their food plants, from the nectar of the plants, of the flowers that they choose to eat.
Yep. Well done! Did you get it?
Got it!
Well done, Benito! Is it the same Anastasia we got?
Probably the same Anastasia that we've just let go. No.
Not this one?
Can we have a look? Is that?
That is not an Anastasia. I think that's a Melanea monophilus.
That's a Melanea. So this looks an awful lot like the Hypothyrus anastasia that we got earlier on, but in fact it's not. But many people see mimicry as a form of deceit in the natural world, but actually it's not in this case. It's actually a mutualism. Because of the fact that all ithomiines are toxic, by looking the same, they are educating their predators a lot more effectively. It means that the predators in this community, like the birds, will learn to avoid butterflies that look like this a lot better if loads of other species look like this as well. And this is a type of mimicry called Mullerian mimicry. The first thing we wanted to know was whether the light in these rainforests varies from the perspective of those butterflies. Now, to study that, we're using this thing, what's known in the trade as a microspectrophotometer. And what that will do is it will measure the amount of light and also the composition of the light. Basically, light does vary when you calibrate those light measurements to model how a butterfly would perceive that light. But what was all the more interesting was that when we then sampled the butterflies that live in the forest, we found that different species tended to be found in different light microhabitats. Some species preferred brighter forest, whereas some species preferred darker forest. Now this is where the mutualistic mimicry comes into it. If these butterflies want to really enhance the signal that they are sending to predators about them being not good to eat, then it probably helps for them to live in the same place as in the forest. And what we showed is that if you sample butterflies in the rainforest, those that share the same mimicry pattern tend to be found in the same light microhabitats. So that tells you something really interesting, I think, about how these really complex rainforest communities are organised. These mutualistic interactions between species are having a profound influence on the ecologies and niche partitioning, allowing in this case 60 different closely related species to coexist together. Now that was really cool, but we actually wanted to take it one step further, because now we knew that light did vary in these rainforests, and that has influenced the way species have evolved to exploit different microhabitats. We then wanted to see whether this has had an evolutionary impact on the visual systems of these animals. In other words, their eyes and their brains. So I'm here back in the lab in Bristol at the moment, and I'm currently going through all the hundreds of butterfly samples that I collected out in the field in Ecuador. And then, after a bit of nimble dissecting, we can lay that cuticle flat on microscope slides like this. What we found is that not only do we see an association between visual system investment and the light environment in which a butterfly is found, we also find that species within the same mimicry ring have converged on the same visual adaptations, both in the eye and in the brain. So why is that important then? What does that actually tell us about how evolution operates? Well, it tells us that these mutualisms, that in this case have arisen multiple times independently of one another within this ithomiine lineage, not only influence how these animals are distributed and partition themselves within these rainforests, but they also have a knock-on indirect effect on how their visual systems evolve and therefore impact how these animals see the world. So to me, this just kind of exemplifies how interactions between species can steer the course of evolution in predictable directions. I find that just really beautiful.